Stop talking to me like we're equals.
You know, I've been sitting on this bench for 40 years. 40 years. I've seen just about everything you can imagine walk through those doors. I've seen good people make terrible mistakes. I've seen broken families trying to hold it together. I've seen young men and women who just needed one person to believe in them. But I've also seen something else. Something that, frankly, makes my blood boil every single time I encounter it. I've seen entitlement. I've seen arrogance. I've seen people who genuinely believe that the rules that govern the rest of us somehow don't apply to them because of who their parents are, how much money they have, or what position of power their family holds in this community. And let me tell you something about equality. Real equality. Not the kind you read about in some textbook or hear about in a campaign speech, but the kind that exists right here in this courtroom. When you stand before this bench, I don't care if your father is a mayor or a mailman. I don't care if your mother is a senator or a school teacher. I don't care if you drive a Mercedes or take the bus. Because the law, the beautiful thing about our system of justice, is that it treats everyone the same, or at least it's supposed to. And when someone comes into my courtroom and demonstrates through their words and their actions that they believe they're above that equality, that they're somehow better than the officers who put their lives on the line every single day, well, that's when I have a problem. So this morning, I want to talk to you about respect. I want to talk to you about humility. And I want to talk to you about what happens when a young person grows up in a bubble of privilege so thick, so impenetrable, that they lose all sense of reality. Because that's what we're dealing with here today. Standing before me is Miss Gabrielle Christine Morrison, 23 years old, resident of 847 Elmwood Estates Drive. For those of you not familiar with that neighborhood, let me paint you a picture. We're talking about homes that start at $2 million. We're talking about gated communities with private security. We're talking about the kind of place where the teenage kids get Range Rovers for their 16th birthdays. And Miss Morrison here, well, she's the daughter of Mayor Richard Morrison. You all know him. Been mayor of this city for 6 years now. Campaigned on transparency, accountability, equal treatment under the law. I wonder how he's feeling this morning, knowing that his own daughter is standing in this courtroom facing the charges that she's facing. I'm looking at Miss Morrison right now, and I can see her standing there in a designer outfit that probably costs more than what some families in this city make in a month. I can see her checking her phone every few seconds like she's got somewhere more important to be. I can see that look on her face, that expression that says she thinks this is all just a minor inconvenience, a little speed bump on her way to brunch with her friends. But let me tell you something, young lady. You need to pay attention right now. You need to understand the gravity of what you've done and why you're standing here today. Let me read you the police report. This is from Officer Michael J. Patterson, badge number 4127, 9-year veteran of this police department, decorated officer, father of 2 young children. On September 28th at approximately 11:47 p.m., Officer Patterson was conducting routine traffic enforcement on Highway 52, near the intersection of Maple Grove Road. Now, for those of you not familiar with that stretch of road, that's a 45-mile-per-hour zone, residential area, houses on both sides, kids playing in yards during the day, families walking their dogs at night. It's the kind of road where we've had pedestrian accidents before, where we've had near misses, where the community has repeatedly asked us for increased enforcement because people drive too fast and put lives at risk. Officer Patterson clocked a white BMW 700i traveling at 89 miles per hour. 89 miles per hour in a 45-mile-per-hour zone. That's not speeding, folks. That's nearly double the limit. That's reckless. That's dangerous. That's the kind of speed that turns a car into a weapon. Officer Patterson immediately activated his lights and siren and attempted to initiate a traffic stop. And here's where it gets interesting, because Miss Morrison didn't pull over right away. No. According to this report, she continued driving for another mile and a half. A mile and a half. Officer Patterson noted in his report that during this time, he could see the driver using her cell phone, holding it up to her face. And at one point, she appeared to be gesturing at the rearview mirror. Now, when she finally did pull over, Officer Patterson approached the vehicle following standard procedure. And let me read you his exact words from the report because they're important. Quote, I approached the driver's side window and immediately detected a strong odor of alcohol emanating from the vehicle. The driver, later identified as Gabrielle Morrison, was holding her cell phone and appeared to be recording me. I asked her to provide her driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance. She rolled her eyes and said, "Do you know who I am?" I responded that I needed to see her documentation. She then stated, "My father is the mayor of this city, and you're making a huge mistake right now." Already we've got problems. Already we've got someone who thinks that their father's position means they don't have to follow the same rules as everyone else. But it gets worse. Officer Patterson continues. I again requested her documentation. Miss Morrison retrieved her license from her purse and threw it out the window at me. When I asked her to step out of the vehicle for a field sobriety test, she refused. She stated, "I'm not doing any tests. I know my rights. You can't make me do anything." I explained to her that under state law, by operating a vehicle, she had given implied consent to chemical testing. She then pointed her phone at me and said she was live streaming the entire interaction to her Instagram followers. Let that sink in for a moment. Officer Patterson is out there at midnight trying to keep our community safe, dealing with someone who's driving nearly double the speed limit, who smells of alcohol, who's being completely uncooperative, and instead of complying with lawful orders, she's live streaming it. She's making it a show. She's trying to turn this into some kind of viral moment where she's the victim and this decorated police officer is the villain. The audacity of that, the absolute nerve. Now, Officer Patterson, being the professional that he is, remained calm. He explained to Miss Morrison that if she refused the field sobriety test, she would be subject to an automatic license suspension. He explained that he had probable cause to believe she was operating under the influence. He gave her every opportunity to cooperate. And you know what she did? According to this report, she looked him right in the eye and said, and I quote, "You probably make, what, $40,000 a year? Maybe 50? My shoes cost more than your monthly salary? You should be thanking me for even talking to you." Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the level of disrespect, the level of contempt for another human being who's just trying to do his job and keep people safe? But we're not done yet. Oh no, we're just getting started, because Officer Patterson, showing the patience of a saint, called for backup. Officer Jennifer Martinez, badge number 3891, arrived on scene at 12:03 a.m. And when Officer Martinez approached the vehicle and asked Miss Morrison to step out, things escalated even further. Now, I want you to picture this scene. It's past midnight. Two police officers, both with impeccable records, both trained professionals, are dealing with an uncooperative driver who refuses to exit her vehicle. They have every legal right to remove her. They have probable cause. They followed every procedure in the book. And Miss Morrison, sitting there in her luxury car that probably costs more than both officers make in a year combined, decides that she's going to lecture them about power dynamics. Officer Martinez writes in her supplemental report, "I approached the passenger side of the vehicle and attempted to speak with Miss Morrison in a calm manner. I explained that we needed her to step out of the vehicle for her safety and ours. She turned to me and said, You're a woman. You should understand. They're profiling me because I'm young and successful." I informed her that this had nothing to do with profiling and everything to do with her excessive speed and suspected impairment. That's when she turned her live stream camera to me and said to her followers, "Look at these people. They're just jealous of people like me who actually make something of themselves." Jealous, these officers who get up every morning and put on a uniform, knowing they might not come home that night. These officers who deal with abuse and disrespect and danger every single day for a paycheck that barely pays the bills. These officers who miss their kids' birthday parties and school plays because they're out there protecting people like Miss Morrison. Jealous. That's what she thinks this is about. But here's where it reaches a level that I, in 40 years on this bench, have rarely encountered. Officer Patterson made the decision to place Miss Morrison under arrest for suspicion of operating under the influence, refusal to submit to testing, reckless driving, and failure to comply with lawful orders. He opened the driver's side door and asked her one final time to step out voluntarily. And according to both officers' reports, according to the testimony of a witness who lived in a nearby house and came outside when they saw the lights, according to the dash cam footage that I have reviewed personally, Miss Morrison looked at Officer Patterson with absolute contempt and said the words that bring us here today. She said, and I want everyone in this courtroom to hear this clearly, she said, "Stop talking to me like we're equals. Stop talking to me like we're equals. Think about that phrase. Roll it around in your mind for a moment. Stop talking to me like we're equals. This young woman who has never worked a real job in her life, who has had everything handed to her, who has never known what it's like to struggle or sacrifice, looked at a public servant, a man who protects and serves this community, and told him that they weren't equals, that somehow, by virtue of her birth, by virtue of her father's position, by virtue of the size of her trust fund, she was better than him. She was above him. She didn't have to treat him with basic human dignity and respect. Now, after she said those words, Officer Patterson, showing incredible restraint, proceeded to place her under arrest. She resisted. She pulled away. She kicked at Officer Martinez. She screamed that they would lose their jobs. She screamed that her father would have them fired. She screamed that she would sue them for everything they had. And when they finally got her in handcuffs and placed her in the back of the patrol car, you know what she did? She spit at the partition. She screamed obscenities. She threatened to have their families investigated. This went on for the entire 20-minute drive to the station. At the station, she refused to provide a breath sample. She refused to provide a blood sample. She demanded to speak to her father. When her father couldn't be reached immediately, she demanded to speak to the police chief. When she was told that the chief wasn't available at 1 a.m., she started screaming that this was false imprisonment, that she was being kidnapped, that this entire city was corrupt. The booking officer noted that she remained belligerent and uncooperative throughout the entire processing procedure. Now, here's what makes this even more disturbing. After she was released on her own recognizance at 6 a.m. the next morning, after her father, the mayor, came down to the station and arranged for her release, you know what she did? She went straight to social media. She posted a series of videos to her Instagram account, which at the time had about 40,000 followers. In these videos, she painted herself as a victim. She claimed she was racially profiled, even though both she and the officers involved are white. She claimed she was targeted because of her father's political enemies. She claimed the officers were aggressive and violent with her, even though the dashcam footage shows nothing of the sort. She edited the live stream footage she had taken to make it look like she was being mistreated, and her followers ate it up. The comments were flooded with people calling our police department corrupt, people saying they would boycott local businesses, people threatening to vote her father out of office if he didn't fire the officers involved. She created a narrative where she was the hero and these officers were the villains. And for a few days, it worked. The police department started getting calls. Officer Patterson and Officer Martinez started receiving threats. Their families were harassed, all because this entitled young woman couldn't accept responsibility for her actions. But then something happened. Someone who had been driving behind Miss Morrison that night came forward. They had dashcam footage of their own, and that footage showed everything. It showed Miss Morrison's BMW weaving between lanes. It showed her running a red light about half a mile before Officer Patterson pulled her over. It showed her nearly sideswiping another vehicle. And when the local news got hold of that footage and aired it, the public narrative started to change. Then the police department released the full unedited dashcam footage from both patrol cars. And people saw what really happened. They saw Officer Patterson being professional and courteous. They saw Miss Morrison being belligerent and disrespectful. They saw her throwing her license at him. They heard her say those words, "Stop talking to me like we're equals." And suddenly, all those supporters disappeared. Suddenly, her Instagram comments turned against her. Suddenly, people started demanding that she face the full consequences of her actions. Now, let's talk about the law. Let's talk about what Miss Morrison actually did wrong, because it's not just about being rude, it's not just about being disrespectful, although that alone tells me everything I need to know about her character. Miss Morrison is charged with operating under the influence, first offense. She's charged with reckless driving, specifically operating a vehicle at nearly double the posted speed limit. She's charged with refusal to submit to chemical testing. She's charged with resisting arrest. She's charged with assault on a police officer for kicking at Officer Martinez. And she's charged with failure to comply with lawful orders. Each of these charges carries serious penalties. The OUI alone carries a mandatory license suspension, fines up to $5,000, and possible jail time up to 2.5 years. The reckless driving charge carries fines up to $2,000 and up to 2 years in jail. The refusal charge carries an automatic license suspension separate from the OUI. The resisting arrest charge, another 2.5 years potential jail time. The assault on a police officer charge, that's a felony that carries up to 5 years in state prison. Now, Miss Morrison's attorney, and I see him sitting there looking like he'd rather be anywhere else right now, has entered a plea of not guilty on all charges. He's argued that his client was not impaired, despite the smell of alcohol and her refusal to take any tests. He's argued that she wasn't driving recklessly, just perhaps a bit over the speed limit. He's argued that she didn't assault anyone, that she was merely trying to maintain her balance while being forcefully removed from her vehicle. And he's argued that all of this is much ado about nothing, that his client has no prior record, that she's a college graduate with her whole life ahead of her, that she's learned her lesson, and that we should just let her go with a slap on the wrist. Well, let me address those arguments one by one, counselor, because they don't hold water. Your client refused to take a breath test or a blood test. Now, why would someone refuse those tests if they had nothing to hide? In my 4 decades doing this job, I've learned that innocent people don't refuse tests. Innocent people take the test to prove their innocence. Your client refused because she knew she would fail. That's consciousness of guilt right there. You say she wasn't driving recklessly. Counselor, she was going 89 miles per hour in a 45 mile per hour zone. At that speed, if a child had run out into the street, your client would have had 0 chance of stopping in time. At that speed, if she had to swerve to avoid an animal or another vehicle, she likely would have lost control. At that speed, if she had hit another car, she could have killed someone. That's not a bit over the speed limit. That's reckless endangerment of everyone around her. You say she was just trying to maintain her balance. The dash cam footage clearly shows her kicking out at Officer Martinez. The officer's uniform had a footprint on it. There were witnesses. Don't insult this court's intelligence by trying to reframe a clear assault as some kind of accident. And as for your argument that she's learned her lesson, counselor, I have to ask, what lesson? Because from where I'm sitting, your client has shown 0 remorse. She hasn't apologized to the officers. She hasn't apologized to this community. She hasn't taken down those edited videos from her social media. She hasn't posted a correction or an apology. Instead, she's played the victim. She's claimed persecution. She's tried to ruin the careers and reputations of 2 good police officers who were just doing their jobs. You say she has no prior record. Well, that's because up until now, she's probably been able to use her father's name to get out of trouble. How many times has she been pulled over before and gotten a warning instead of a ticket because of who her father is? How many times has she skated by on privilege while other young people in this city faced the full consequences of their actions? This might be her first time in my courtroom, but I guarantee you it's not her first time breaking the law. It's just the first time she couldn't make it go away with a phone call. You know what really bothers me about this case? It's not just the drunk driving, although that's serious enough. It's not just the excessive speed, although that endangered lives. It's not even the assault on the officers, although that's reprehensible. What really bothers me is the complete and total lack of respect for the system of justice that keeps our society functioning. What bothers me is the arrogance, the entitlement, the belief that rules are for other people. When Miss Morrison told Officer Patterson to stop talking to her like they were equals, she revealed something fundamental about how she views the world. She revealed that she thinks there are 2 classes of people. People like her, who are above the law, and people like Officer Patterson, who exist to serve people like her. That kind of thinking is dangerous. It's corrosive. It undermines everything we're trying to build here. I want to speak directly to Miss Morrison now. Young lady, I need you to listen to me very carefully. You are 23 years old. You have your whole life ahead of you. You come from a family of privilege and opportunity. You've been given advantages that most people in this city, in this country, will never have. You went to private schools. You've never worried about where your next meal was coming from. You've never had to work 2 jobs to pay rent. You've been handed things that other people have to fight and scrape and sacrifice for. But here's what you need to understand. None of that makes you special. None of that makes you better than anyone else. That badge that Officer Patterson wears, That represents something bigger than your father's position or your family's money. That represents the rule of law. That represents the idea that we're all accountable for our actions. And when you disrespected that officer, when you told him that you two weren't equals, you weren't just insulting him. You were insulting every single person who works hard, who plays by the rules, who treats others with dignity and respect, regardless of their bank account or their last name. Let me tell you about Officer Patterson. He grew up in this city. He went to public schools. He put himself through community college while working nights at a warehouse. He joined the police academy because he wanted to serve his community. He makes $53,000 a year. He drives a 12-year-old Toyota. He lives in a modest house in a modest neighborhood. He and his wife save up all year so they can take their kids on a weekend trip to the beach. He works overtime whenever he can to help pay for his daughter's dance classes and his son's baseball league fees. And you know what? He's a good man. He's a kind man. He volunteers as a youth basketball coach. He's pulled over plenty of people who were speeding or driving recklessly, and he's treated every single one of them with respect and professionalism. He's saved lives. He's performed CPR on accident victims. He's talked people out of suicide. He's reunited lost children with their parents. He's everything we should want in a police officer. And you looked at that man, a man who has done more good in his 9 years on the force than you've done in your entire privileged life, and you told him he wasn't your equal. You told him, essentially, that his service, his sacrifice, his dedication meant nothing because he doesn't have money, because he works for a living instead of living off a trust fund, because he chose a career in public service instead of chasing Wall Street money or trading on his family name. That tells me everything I need to know about your character, or rather, your lack thereof. Now, I've sat here and listened to your attorney talk about how you're a good person who made a mistake. But here's the thing. Good people don't treat other people the way you treated those officers. Good people don't endanger others by driving drunk and reckless. Good people don't try to use their family connections to escape consequences. Good people don't lie on social media and try to destroy the reputations of innocent officers. Good people, when they make mistakes, own up to them. They apologize, they try to make things right. You've done none of those things. So let's talk about what's going to happen here today. Because I've thought long and hard about this case. I've reviewed all the evidence, I've watched the videos, I've read the reports, I've considered all the arguments, and I've come to a decision that I believe is fair, just, and necessary. On the charge of operating under the influence, I find you guilty. The evidence is overwhelming. You were speeding excessively, weaving between lanes, you smelled of alcohol, and you refused all testing. For this conviction, I am sentencing you to 2 years in the House of Correction with 18 months suspended. That means you will serve 6 months. 6 months to think about what you've done. 6 months to understand that your actions have consequences. 6 months away from your comfortable life, your social media, your parties, and your privilege. Additionally, your driver's license is suspended for 2 years. Not 1 year, 2 years. During that time, you are prohibited from operating any motor vehicle. If you're caught driving, you'll be back in here facing additional charges, and I promise you, I will not be lenient. You are also fined $5,000. That money will go to victim services and community programs that help real victims of drunk driving. On the charge of reckless driving, I find you guilty. I am sentencing you to 1 year in the House of Correction to run concurrently with the OUI sentence. You are fined an additional $2,000. On the charge of refusal to submit to chemical testing, your license suspension is extended by an additional 6 months. That's on top of the 2 years I already mentioned. On the charge of resisting arrest, I find you guilty. I am sentencing you to 6 months in the House of Correction to run concurrently with your other sentences. On the charge of assault on a police officer, I find you guilty. Now, this is a serious charge. This is a felony. I could send you to state prison for up to 5 years. But because this is your first conviction, and because I still have some hope that 6 months behind bars will wake you up to reality, I am sentencing you to 2 years in the House of Correction with 18 months suspended to run concurrently with your other sentences. However, understand this. You now have a felony conviction on your record that will follow you for the rest of your life. You are also ordered to complete 200 hours of community service upon your release. And not just any community service. I am ordering you to complete those hours working with organizations that serve underprivileged communities. I want you to see how the other half lives. I want you to meet people who don't have the advantages you've had. I want you to understand that value as a human being has nothing to do with the size of your bank account. You are also ordered to attend alcohol education classes and submit to random drug and alcohol testing for 2 years following your release. And finally, I am ordering you to write a formal public apology to Officers Patterson and Martinez, not some half-hearted social media post, a real apology where you acknowledge what you did wrong and take full responsibility. That apology will be published in the local newspaper, and you will take down those edited videos from your social media and post a full retraction with the complete unedited dashcam footage so people can see what really happened. If you violate any of these conditions, if you fail to complete your community service, if you drive during your suspension, if you fail a drug or alcohol test, if you refuse to write that apology, I will revoke your suspended sentences and you will serve the full time. Do you understand me? Now, I want to address the people watching this case. I want to address the parents out there. Teach your children better. Teach them that everyone deserves respect regardless of their job or their income. Teach them that police officers aren't the enemy. They're public servants trying to keep us safe. Teach them that privilege is not an excuse for bad behavior. It's a responsibility to do better. Teach them that making a mistake is human, but refusing to take responsibility for that mistake is a character flaw. To the young people watching this case, let this be a lesson. You are not invincible. You are not above the law. Your parents' position or money will not protect you forever. And if you drive drunk, if you endanger others, if you disrespect the people trying to keep our community safe, you will face consequences, real consequences. To the police officers out there, to Officer Patterson and Officer Martinez specifically, thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your professionalism. Thank you for your patience in dealing with people like Miss Morrison who treat you with contempt. This community is lucky to have you. And to anyone who still thinks Miss Morrison was treated unfairly, let me ask you this. What if it had been your child playing in their yard when she came flying down that residential street at 89 miles per hour? What if she had hit them? What if your family had been driving on that road when her intoxicated, reckless driving caused her to lose control? Would you still think 6 months in jail is too harsh? Would you still think she deserves a slap on the wrist? The law exists to protect all of us. It exists to ensure that no one, regardless of who they are or who their family is, can endanger others without facing consequences. And in my courtroom, that law will be applied equally to everyone, because we are equals. Every single person who stands before this bench is equal in the eyes of the law. That's what justice means. Miss Morrison, you're remanded to the custody of the Sheriff's Department. You will be transported to the House of Correction to begin serving your sentence immediately. I truly hope you use this time to reflect, to grow, and to become a better person. You have the potential to turn your life around. But that starts with humility. That starts with recognizing that you're not better than anyone else. That starts with understanding that respect is earned, not bought. This court is adjourned.